there's something quite romantic about doing IVF together because
Hold on. I've never what?
I'm so proud of what I went through so that Jon could have his own biological children. It's the hardest thing I've ever had to do. I'm going to get emotional now. Every injection was because I love him. That is romantic to me. Nothing will ever bring us as close as that experience did.
Family building is supposed to be easy, and it can be a shock when it's not. The roller coaster ride of infertility can be a mix of emotions and conflicting advice along the way. As a reproductive endocrinologist and former fertility patient, I not only help patients build families every day, but I remember what the ride was like for me. Hang on tight as we learn together from experts and share stories from infertility warriors with compassion. I'm your host, Dr. Lora Shahine, and this is Baby or Bust. All things fertility, the evaluation, treatment, and support is female-focused, and men can feel left out of this process. They may not have as many tests, get as many shots or procedures, but all of the emotions of this infertility journey happen to men too. Here to help us remember why men matter on the infertility journey are Lora and Jon from the Infertility Man YouTube channel, website, and soon-to-be book. Welcome, Lora and Jon. We're so happy to have you here.
Yeah, thanks very much, Lora.
Yeah, we're excited to talk to you too.
Fertility is a female issue, right? Like it's always the woman's fault, and we should really be focused on women all the time. Am I right?
I've been told that.
Not in our case. I mean, I think honestly, it's nobody's fault to start with, nobody's at fault as the first thing.
Right. So there's a male factor piece of fertility about 30 or 40% of the time. You guys have a unique story in that Jon was diagnosed and treated for testicular cancer before you guys got together. And kind of the main reason and the only way that you could really have a genetic child together was to do IVF and fertility treatment. So that's not as common, but in general, you always have to think about the male side.
Well, for us, making the decision to do IVF was sort of taken out of our hands because of my situation. And before Lora, I think I'd made that nice little package that I was never going to have kids, and that's why I started working with kids, and I just took everyone else's and gave them back at the end of the day. Yeah, very good. Grateful is not even a word. Appreciation. It's just she's a powerhouse.
I mean, right back when we met, I'd met this great guy. He'd asked me out for a first date, and
who was he?
Well, I was so excited because I'd met this incredibly masculine, tall, man, and he invited me out for a date. And literally in the second half of the date, he sort of brought up the topic of kids. And I don't know, Jon, if you can explain this, but it was important to you to make me aware of this quite early in our relationship because you already knew or believed that you couldn't have kids. And so on our first date, it actually came up.
Laura's got a big family and I'm a part of a big extended family. Even though I'd made peace with the fact that I wasn't going to have my own children, that conversation around kids and it was like, do you want children? And I was like, of course I want children. I would love to have my own children, though I don't think I can. I still see her face. Like she didn't even budge. She sort of went, oh, that's interesting. Like I know she wasn't expecting it.
So on your first date, you already started talking about whether you're going to have kids.
I think a lot of that comes back to our age. For me, it was important that she knew. It was a really interesting date, that one.
So I think I was 35 at the time and you were 41. When we met each other, we knew that the relationship felt right because we were older, and you can kind of know that a little bit more when you're older. But at 35, I sort of had those alarm bells ringing because, they say that's the age where female fertility starts to drop. So I sort of was thinking, okay, this is it, or I won't have kids either. But I did remember thinking, gee, I can't believe I finally found the guy, and now we have this new challenge.
I don't think we knew what that challenge actually looked like at that stage. Like we were sort of the impression that it was all just going to, I'd do my test, you do your test, I'd stick them all together, and after one go, here we go, we'll have a child. And Yeah, that was definitely not the case.
I think that came from the fact that I didn't have any diagnosed fertility issues. So when you don't have female factor, you just assume everything's going to be quite easy. And that was actually not the case, which we learned later. It wasn't so easy.
Tell me about that first visit to the fertility doctor. How did that go?
That was actually quite funny. So I didn't have a GP at the time, so I went and found a GP. I went and got tested, and there was nothing in my ejaculate, no sperm. I actually mentioned to Laura, I think it's time we went and saw someone. And we had no idea where to start. I looked on the internet. I looked for someone nice and close. The whole idea around my situation was a fine needle aspiration. So we're talking about minimal scarring for me. So a fine needle aspiration, if they found sperm, then we can talk about the next step.
You invited me to come with you to that fine needle aspiration. So I knew they were going to stick a needle into your testicle, and you invited me like it was a date. And I remember thinking, this is pretty intimate. Like, we had only at that stage known each other maybe 3 months. So it was a very new relationship. But we were like, okay, we don't have a lot of time. We may as well get this ball rolling and start, because we've always seen it as just take the next step. So even that early in our relationship, we're like, well, we'll go get it tested. Doesn't mean we have to have kids together, but let's go do the testing. So you invited me, and I was thinking, God, I'm going to have to sit next to this person I don't really know while he gets a needle put into his testicle.
3 times.
Were you in the room?
I was. I remember thinking, oh, maybe I'll wait in the waiting room. Like, I just want to go to support him. But you were like, come on in. And I'm sitting there going, okay, this is weird.
Jon, this is a date?
So I know how to show a woman a good time, Laura.
Well, you guys always do such a good job when you're sharing your stories and your journey about combining humor with it. And I just kind of really appreciate that. Sometimes when things are so frustrating or painful, you just gotta laugh because otherwise it's just going to be...
Yeah, you're just going to cry. I agree.
You certainly were not excited to share your story at first. Is that correct? Because you kind of thought, all right, this is going to be one cycle, have a baby, and that's it. So kind of what happened?
A lot of the grief that we caused ourselves around that time was because of what was actually happening, and that fairy tale you had, that belief, that comparison to what you thought should have been going on and what was actually going on. So that was something that actually caused most of the grief. It was more often than not, it was in our heads.
Even the idea of, since you're a little girl, of how it's all going to work out, when you introduce fertility treatment, suddenly that changes. And I think I felt maybe under the surface a little bit of kind of shame about that for the first year. It took me a while to process it, that by sharing our story, it was kind of saying to the world, you know, there's something that's not that fairy tale about us. And looking back now, I see it as the perfect fairy tale. But at the time, I didn't see it that way. So it took me a while to get used to that idea. But for the first year, we managed just on our own. And then we realized that actually the only way we were going to receive help and support was to ask for it. So the second year we told family and friends. And then the third year was when we went, well, you know, screw it. Let's put our whole story on the internet and share it with everybody, because we wanted nobody to feel alone.
When you were going through your fertility struggles, did you find anybody else that you could see their YouTube channel or any other source of support when you were in the middle of it?
What I noticed was that there wasn't many people sharing from a male factor in fertility. In fact, I couldn't find anybody who was going through that experience. And so we thought, well, there's a bit of a gap there. And so we decided we wanted to share that from the male perspective.
Obviously, it was male factor. We got into the environment and we just found there was such a tendency towards negativity. It took us a little while for us to decide that maybe we could offer some value. And I always joke with Laura that I'm the talent and Laura just directs me.
Tell me more about the negativity. What do you mean by that?
There's a lot of pain associated. Those thoughts we were just talking about then, about what's actually happening in reality, and this dream of how the perfect life was going to be. When those don't meet, you are in a painful place. I think for us, we continually work through those stages. What we've come to peace with is how it's happened is exactly how it was meant to happen. I guess that gives us peace as well, because we're not comparing our story to something that isn't real. I think potentially that can lead people down that negative road. Laura and I decided that it was okay to feel the moment, though we decided we weren't going to spend very long there. And Laura said it before that it was always about what is our next step. It's not about being positive all the time. I think it's really important that you acknowledge the difficult times and the challenging times, though I believe it's really important that you learn from those and you go, right, where is this going to drive us? Is it going to drive us off the cliff, or is it actually going to drive us around the ravine and onto the next road, journey, adventure, challenge, whatever you want to call it?
And it's so true. If you don't laugh, you're gonna cry. And it's so hard going through these challenging experiences, losses and just the waiting. And I don't think we would have had the stamina to keep going for as long as we did if we didn't find the fun in it and the humor in it. So that's what our YouTube channel ended up being for us. Because some of these experiences are quite funny. Like, it's funny that we hide our underwear so that the doctor doesn't see it, but then we spread our legs and show our, vajayjay. So finding the humor in that, there is always something to laugh about. And there's always a reason to be hopeful.
How is it different from the man's perspective? Seeing Lora go through the shots and the egg retrievals, and I think it's 8 egg retrievals, maybe more.
I did 15 cycles and 14 retrievals, yeah.
Jon, seeing that in your partner, are there feelings that kind of come up like, oh gosh, if I had sperm, we wouldn't be doing this? And how did that feel?
Guilt is probably one of the big feelings or big emotions that comes up. And purely because of me that we're actually in this journey. And we talked about this a load of times. I made peace with it by just playing my role with Lora, even when it came to doing the injections. I think for the first 3 retrievals, I did all the injections because Lora wasn't ready to do them to herself. And when it actually came to that time, and that was actually because she was going to an event, one night we just said, well, you're going to have to do this at some stage because I'm literally not going to be there. And so, oh no. And this took, I can't even remember how much time, but it took a long time because we got the ice pack out and we're there. And then I said, all right, how about you get the needle, we'll put some saline in it, and how about you give me an injection?
That's fantastic.
And then that took a load of time in itself because like, oh, and then we're like, it's like darts. And she'd get close and she'd go, oh, I can't do this. Are you sure? And it's like, just do it already, would you? Once she finally did the injection with my belly, she basically just jumped on board and was able to do it herself. So I guess for me, it was just about helping her at each stage. I could sit there and wallow in my own self-pity, but really, at the end of the day, the burden of treatment does lie with the female, with my Lora, and I literally had to just be there with her and suck it up, really. If I kept focusing on that, what's our next step, what's my next step, what's my next part to this puzzle, then it kept those emotions of guilt at bay.
The way that Jon dealt with the guilt or what his situation was putting me through was by being an active participant. Right at the end, even when I could give myself injections, he was still sat beside me every single time when he was home. So I think that's a way for men to deal with it is just be involved rather than trying to separate yourself and turn a blind eye to what's happening.
You guys really communicate well. Jon, it sounds like you're really very open with your emotions, and that's hard for a lot of men.
Yeah, I think one of the major things too is I had to reason with as men as well. We just want to fix things. We literally cannot fix this.
Jon, you touched on something that is so common. I see so many of my male patients feeling anger because they can't fix it.
It is definitely a thing, obviously, from a male perspective. Even when we started talking, Laura and I, she'd be speaking, and I've already got 53 solutions to her problem, though I needed to realize that she didn't need any solutions to her problem. She just needed to voice her problems. Well, I process very differently. I would need to come to terms with the fact that I needed to listen to her process so that we always ended up in the same place. It just took her a little longer and she'd like to verbalize. So I think when it comes to dealing with or trying to fix things in this process, for me, I took control of the things that I could take control of. I like to journal. I like to read and look at some motivational quotes. I like to jump on the drums. So any of that sort of those emotions or those sort of negative emotions, and they would be directed towards Laura because I couldn't fix it, even though it wasn't Laura's fault. I would just organize things or plan things, schedule things so that I could actually take control of a part of the day. If I had control of that part of the day, then the rest of it really didn't matter. I would be able to be flexible and adaptable, and it really didn't matter that I couldn't fix Laura's infertility or my infertility, and we're going to have to be quick on our feet. So it still doesn't hurt to know that it's very normal for you to feel this anger.
You know that women actually don't always want things to be fixed. You know, if you can give me a hug and make me feel better, that was how you really stepped up as a man for me. You know, finding a way to laugh through something or just being present and giving me a hug, it really did actually fix it in a lot of ways for me, even though you couldn't fix the bigger problem of getting pregnant.
And it took me a little while to realize this. And yes, while Laura was on hormones and stuff, and she would say things, and I'm like, hang on, this is not personal. So if I checked my ego at the door, it didn't matter what she said. All I wanted to do was just help her and make her feel safe and supported and take it from there.
He'd always tease me about it later, though. Like, do you remember the time when I was sitting on the floor in a pile of clothes? I'd had a lot of hormones, and I was just crying, going, I have nothing to wear. Yeah. And at the time, you had to sort of be with me in that and go, well, you really have no clothes. And I'm sitting in a pile of clothes. But then he never lets me forget that stuff. We laugh about it afterwards, and we really try and notice when it's the hormones talking and when it's me talking, because they are two different people. One of the things that we set up, which helped us, was we tried to set aside times to talk about what was happening. So we would say, okay, let's talk about it this evening and let's give ourselves a break until this evening. That really helped us, because I literally could just keep talking about it forever, and that was challenging I think, for most males. So just that little tip really made a difference.
Because this is a marathon. This is like a 3-year process. This isn't like, oh, I'm just going to suck it up, ignore all my feelings, and kind of get through one IVF cycle. This is like intense. Are there other, solid things that you found helpful in the emotional piece?
The other thing we would do relating to our treatment is every time we had a big appointment or, we had a surgery or whatever, we would plan time after the appointment to go and have a date. We actually did fertility dating. So my first follicle scan of each cycle, we always made sure that we had time to go and get a coffee afterwards or just do something nice for ourselves so that it wasn't straight back to work or the office. We would just plan an extra hour to sit together and either discuss what we just heard or talk about something completely different over a nice meal or a nice cup of coffee. That made a big difference.
Fertility dating. I'm going to tell all my patients to do that. That is so great.
I think as well, because we were just so new in our relationship, we were still in the dating stage. So we just made it part of our dating that we would do that. And that's why it was so easy to film, because we would just put the camera on in these moments when we either had a scheduled fertility meeting or we had a fertility date. And so then we filmed it as well. So, and caught it in real time as it was happening. So
our dating through fertility, date number 3, fine needle aspiration.
Yeah. Pretty much, yeah.
Date number 4, vaginal ultrasound.
Exactly, yeah. I remember teaching Jon to watch his angles when he was in there. I'm like, if you stand right at the end of the bed there, I kind of feel a little exposed. Do you think you could stand over to the side?
Infertility is a complete lack of control. And you're touching on, I couldn't control when it's going to happen, exactly how it's going to happen, how many retrievals or micro testes it's going to take. But I could control little routines in my day. I could control how I was kind to my partner. I could control laughter when I needed it. And I think that's a really, really important message, because you can feel so lost, and fertility can just take over so much of your life. And it just, you feel that lack of control.
Yeah, I do have control over how I turned up, and I made that really important. Like Laura said, we had a bit of a date night to have a bit of a chat about something, and I wasn't in the space that I needed to be to do that. I would have to go, hey, Laura, like, we're going to either have to put this off for a little while, or maybe tomorrow I'm definitely not in the space you need me to be to take this on.
I've seen the cover of your upcoming book, and it's such a cute picture. It's a cartoon, and it looks like Jon is trying to give you, Laura, an injection, and you're kicking the needle like out of his hand and like maybe hit his chin on the way. What was the inspiration behind the cover of that book?
Real life. Yeah, we've been working on this book, and it's coming out later in the year. And we thought, we see anyone going through fertility treatment as a superhero. So we thought, well, let's get some superhero cartoons made up. And we have an amazing artist, Tatiana Larkin, and she's done these incredible images for us, but they're all based on real life. And that image of me, like I would say, okay, Jon, it's time for my injection. And then I would just squirm away from him. It's since proven that I have a high pain threshold, but I have a high drama threshold as well. And so I would just wiggle away from him. And he's a paramedic, so he's used to being able to inject people in their most dangerous moments. But with me, he couldn't do that because he had to engage with me emotionally before I would allow him to inject me. So yeah, I was a bit of a baby about it, and I would literally just push him away. And he'd be like, stop pushing my hand away.
Well, guys, that image really spoke to me because I've done IVF to have my family as well. And my poor husband tried so hard to give me those progesterone shots in the butt. And I will never forget the first time he's trying so hard to like aim, and we're in the bathroom when you got to get to work. And I'm like, just do the shot. And he literally tries, it goes in a little bit. And then I hear this like crash, and the needle is like in the shower. Like he like tried to do it and then had a reflex, and the needle just went flying across the room. Needless to say, thank God I'm an IVF doctor and my nurses could do the rest of the shots. But it just really spoke to me. Just like that one image that you guys have for the cover, I was like, oh my God, these guys get me.
There's something really, if you look at it this way, there's something quite romantic about doing IVF together because you...
Hold on. I've never, ever, I just have to stop you there. What?
Well, okay, I need to explain this. There is a way to see it that way. If you make it something that you're in together, nobody else will ever experience what you go through as a couple to have your babies like this. If you allow it to, and if you step up to it the right way, it can bring you together in a way that I think nothing else can, because I'm so proud of what I went through so that Jon could have his own biological children. It's the greatest achievement of my life. It's the hardest thing I've ever had to do. I'm going to get emotional now. I did it because I love him, and every injection was because I love him. And that is romantic to me, and he was there by my side through all of it because he loves me. Nothing will ever bring us as close as that experience did. So that's what I mean when I say it was romantic.
Any advice you can think of for men that are going through fertility, Jon, speaking man to man?
It's quite the ride when you're watching your partner go through fertility treatments. It's just not the way it was meant to happen. Vulnerability is probably one of the most important things that a guy needs on this journey. It's about being very particular about the people you spend time with. And I guess you could call it your peer group, your infertility peer group, because people don't understand this journey. Men in general, they just assume you have sex and you have a baby. I would like to say that the majority of people would be emotionally intelligent enough to understand where you're at. The majority of people aren't.
But it's so true. You were so selective about the people that you let in to support you, because even people that we love in our lives, like our family and friends, they would just consistently say the wrong thing. And so we had to be really careful. And it wasn't because they had any bad intent. They just didn't understand.
I feel like so much of support in fertility treatments and infertility diagnosis is really female focused. Like a lot of the apps that are out there, the books are female focused. Doctors tend to be focused on the female patient because they're the one that's in front of you. What recommendations do you have for support for men that are going through fertility, whether it's a male factor or not? What else is out there?
I have connected with a couple of gentlemen in the UK. I actually was on one of the podcasts. It's a male fertility podcast. And another gentleman, he's got the man cave as well. These guys have actually experienced Infertility. They've created a safe space for guys, and they're actually on the one that I created. We created the men's infertility group on Facebook, but there's not many of us. There was literally 5 of us around the world. It was easy for us to share, to make that decision, because we found there was actually nothing of real substance for us to help on our journey.
Okay, so I know the fairy tale wasn't exactly what maybe we were growing up and seeing in the movies, and that wasn't the narrative we expected. But tell me how your fairy tale ended.
We were so lucky that we were able to find sperm through John's microtesy procedures. We were able to make a number of embryos, and we transferred one about 11 months ago. And I'm talking to you now with our daughter on my lap. I mean, I don't know what it's like to have a baby the normal way, but it is never lost on us just how lucky we are. And we never forget that. Every single day, there's a moment where we just appreciate her, maybe just a little bit more than we would have if she'd been conceived naturally. So however you get to build your family, whether it's through IVF or whether it's through some other means, the journey is what makes you a better parent as well. So yeah, we just feel really grateful, and literally every day we thank our lucky stars. So, and we have 9 more embryos in the freezer. So who knows? The story's not over yet.
How can we find you?
We're on Instagram and Facebook and social media as Infertility Man. That's John's account. We have our men's group on Facebook, the Men's Infertility Group, so you can search for that. We have a website as well, infertilityman.com. And yeah, we're pretty excited to have our book coming out later in the year as well.
Lora and Jon, thank you so much for being here today. I absolutely loved talking to you.
Yeah, we love talking to you as well. And it's so important to be acknowledging the men in this journey because they're such a big part of it. So thanks for talking with us today.
Thank you, Lora.
Thank you so much for being here today. I truly enjoyed this conversation with Lora and Jon and appreciate what they're doing to create new channels for support for men through fertility and highlighting just how important this process can be. My takeaway from the conversation with Lora and Jon today is that men and women can sometimes process feelings around infertility differently. And it's so important to support your partner along the way. I'm your host, Dr. Lora Shahine, and this is Baby or Bust. If you like this episode, let us know. Give us a 5-star review and follow the show wherever you listen to podcasts. Baby or Bust is produced by Mark Ramsey, Jaime Solis, and Greg Moga. Executive produced by Paul Anderson, Nick Panella, and Andrew Greenwood for Workhouse Media. Baby or Bust is a Mark Ramsey media production.